Hi guys, welcome back to my very inconsistent videos with my very inconsistent channel. I do apologize. Hopefully after this video it actually changes, because if you don't know already, my husband and I are expecting our second child together that is due in January. Originally they told us our due date was December, however it changed and all, it was a mess. So we are due January 16th of 2020. Hopefully we make it to my due date, because I know with Lena I did not. I was a week early. But yeah, like I said, hopefully after this video I'm a little more consistent, because I do want to go ahead and track my pregnancy, because with Lena I was very consistent on tracking my pregnancy updates, and I want to go ahead and do the same here, like monthly updates. But anyways, I'm going to be going over my journey and actually conceiving, because it was not an easy one. It was a bumpy one. And then lastly, my labor and delivery, because if you don't know already, I did move to Japan back in February of this year. So I've been getting a lot of questions if I'm going to be going back home for this whole pregnancy, or am I going to just be delivering back home, and I'll get into that later on. But let's go ahead and start with how we got to where we are today, which is pregnant. I'm the worst storyteller. So let's date back to actually when Lena passed away, which was our first baby. She passed in May 2017. And after her passing, I will admit I am guilty of it, and I'll explain it later. But when she did pass away, immediately a lot of people were telling me it's okay, Sonia, like it's fine, like you could have more kids in the future, like it's okay, it's your first baby, and this and that. Like, it was very negative and naive to say that, right? But I let it get to my head a lot, and right away I was like, I want another baby, like I want a baby. And it wasn't necessarily to replace her place in my heart and my life, but it was more like I just wanted the presence of a baby that was mine. So immediately I was like, I want a baby, and it was very selfish of me, and I'm glad we did not have a baby right away, because after her passing, it was a hot mess. I was a hot mess. I went into a really bad depression. What's expected, basically. And a few months after her passing, I'm not sure how many exactly, but my husband and I actually did agree that we wanted to start trying, and it wasn't necessarily like we want it right away. It was more like if it happens, it happens. We were more on that boat. And so I went ahead and I went to my gynecologist beforehand, and I wanted to get the green card that it was okay to start trying, because I did have Lena previously early that year. So I just wanted to make sure everything was good, and I wouldn't hurt myself or anything. So he went ahead and he cleared me. He said, yes, you could go ahead and start trying. And I was like, okay, perfect. So we did start trying, and a few months did go on. And that's when a lot of stuff started to pop up that I noticed within my body that was weird and odd. And then that's basically when all my issues started. So the first issue was we were trying for quite some time, and I would actually miss a period. And I would miss it for months at a time. And there was also times that not only was I missing a period, but I would miss a period and I would spot within the time I'm supposed to get my period, and it would only last like a day max, but I wouldn't have a period for the rest of the week, if that makes sense. So I would always lean on a maybe, because my body's still healing from delivery. So that's what I would always pin it on. Like, I'm still healing, like it's okay, like it's normal. But in reality, it really wasn't normal. But everybody's different, so don't throw your comments at me. But so I did start to keep track of that. And also I wanted to mention that I downloaded a period tracker app, because that's how out of whack my periods were, to the point that like I was losing track if I even got a period that month, or how many days late I was. So it's good that I actually downloaded a period app to actually maintain when I would get a period and when I wouldn't get it. So once I started to notice that it was happening more frequently than I thought, I went ahead and I scheduled an appointment with my OBG, because I wanted him to be aware if it was normal, or if I'm like literally something's wrong with me. So I went ahead and I told him like, hey, we've actually been trying for quite some time now. It was a couple of months. It wasn't like 1 or 2 months. Like, it was a couple of months of trying, and that's me going back and forth from from the States to Japan. So, and keep in mind, it wasn't consistent either, because obviously my husband lives here in Japan and then I live back home at the time. So I was going back and forth within this time period. So I did let my my OBG know what was going on too, because he knew from the start too that my husband was living in Japan. So also, I wanted to go ahead and throw it in there. I'm sure it'll probably make sense. I do only have one fallopian tube and one ovary. I had my right side removed a few years back because I did have a mass cyst, which is the reason why they actually had to cut my fallopian tube and my ovary out. And when I did have that surgery, they did tell me later on in the future, if I was ever to reproduce, it was gonna be hard. And if not yet hard, I probably won't be able to reproduce. And literally, I feel like, it's not that I don't believe what doctors say half the time, but it's more like, I believe that there's miracles and anything can happen, set aside the odds, because I obviously got pregnant with Lena so sudden. So yeah, I wanted to throw that in there. So back to the story. Once I did mention all of that to him, I'm so sorry if the story's like a mess. I'm horrible at telling stories, so I'm honestly trying my best to make sure it's within the time frames that everything happened. So he did tell me at that appointment that I was not ovulating. At the time, he's like, right now you are not ovulating, which is why you have not conceived. Because he did tell me too, back on my first visit when I wanted to get the okay to start trying, he said it was gonna be easier for me to start trying because people that just deliver will basically just give birth to a baby and then try to get pregnant again. It usually happens quicker. That's why they tell you not to have intercourse after you have a baby. I don't know if that's true, but that's what he said. So that's why I was like, well, why is it not happening? Well, that was the reason why. He said I was not ovulating, which is the reason why my periods were out of whack, which is why I was getting a period and then I wasn't getting a period because I was not ovulating. So he went ahead and he prescribed me some medication, and I was taking the medication. Well, he prescribed me the medication and he told me that it was gonna help me with my period and realign my period, as well as help me ovulate. And I was like, perfect, problem solved. So I went ahead and I started taking the medication, and then I did notice that my period was still out of whack. I'm not even gonna lie, it was still out of whack. And I was like, okay, well, I thought we solved this problem. And I let time go on. I was like, maybe I should give it more time. So I did, and I was still going back and forth, and we were still trying. Let me fast forward to, let me see. In December, I went ahead and I got scheduled to be seen again by my gynecologist because the medicine of my ovulation medicine was not working. And it got to the point that I was very frustrated. I was very annoyed. I was very hard on myself because I would literally put myself down for every little thing. That why is my body not working like a normal woman? Why is this so hard? Why is it so easy for other people to get pregnant? Why am I struggling? If it happened once, why is it not happening again? Like, I was so naive that like I hate it. But I mean, when you're in that position, you're bound to think negative because it's like nothing's going the way that you expected it to. So that's why I was the way I was. Sorry. So anyways, at that appointment, he did finally tell me, he's like, look, you've been trying for quite some time. And when I mean December of 2018. So we've been trying for nearly a year now at this point. And he had told me, look, I don't think you're even fertile. He's like, I don't think you're fertile. And the reason why I went to go see him again, because people are probably gonna think, well, Yesenia, at this point, like, you can't be so desperate. And I wasn't desperate. I was more of a sense of, I knew something was wrong with me. I knew in my gut something was wrong. And that's why they always say, trust your gut, because 95% of the time you're probably right. So I also wanted to mention that at that time period, I was spotting a lot to the point that my periods, when I did get my period, would be super heavy on, how to describe it, like TMI, like literally when you just have a baby of so much blood and blood clots. So that was one of the reasons why I wanted to see him too, because I was like, something's wrong. So he gave me medication to help me out and hopefully smooth sailing and everything. So at that point, let's fast forward to February because that's when I moved here to Japan, and I was like, perfect. Hopefully it's gonna be easier because I'm gonna see my husband basically every day. So I was like, hopefully everything goes well. So February came and February came, we moved in together. So we were still trying, obviously, and then let's fast forward to March. So March came and my husband was actually going to be going on a deployment, and it was going to be for a couple of weeks. It was going to be like 3 weeks, I think it was. And my sister was actually getting married in early April, she was getting April 6th. So she was getting married and he was going to be gone. So I saw no point in being here. So I was like, I do want to be there for my sister's wedding. So I flew back home the last week of March. Yeah. So I flew back home to be with my family and be there for my sister's wedding. And perfect timing. And when I did go back home, my mom actually told me, she's like, why don't you go ahead and get scheduled with your gyno? I was seeing literally, I'm probably leaving a lot of holes in the story and I'm so sorry, but I can't even document like everything that happened because there was so much things that happened. So before I left, I actually scheduled an appointment. I was getting my period and I was getting it to the point that it was hurting really bad. And like I mentioned before, my blood clots, it was pretty bad. Like I was scared. I was cramping severely, but it was like bad abdominal pain. And I have such a high level of pain tolerance. So I was like, oh no, honey, something's wrong. I went back to him, my doctor. He confirmed with me that I need to go ahead and get a test procedure done when I do actually fly back home, which I would be flying back early the first week of April. So this test, I don't remember the name of it, but he did say it was a test where they shoot dye into your fallopian tubes to see if there's any blockage. So he wanted me to go ahead and do that test. And I was like, okay. He's like, other than that, everything is fine. So I was like, okay. So fast forward, when I was coming back home, the day I actually came back home, I scheduled my appointment, which was going to be scheduled for June 3rd, and which is actually today. Yeah, today. So I had a scheduled appointment for the test that he wanted me to do. So obviously, let's backtrack now till April, basically. We're going to be in April still. So April, I missed my period. And I literally was like, here the freak we go again. Missed my period, no biggie. However, the week I did miss my period, I was spotting. And I only spotted for one day. And I was like, here we go again. Here, we're going to go down the same freaking BS. So I was spotting for one day. I documented it. But for some reason, this time that I missed my period, it felt different. And I felt I was getting really bad headaches. So I was so convinced, I was like, I am pregnant. I have to be pregnant. So I took a test a few days after I missed my period. And obviously it was negative because I was so used to all my tests being negative, whether it was my ovulation test and all these period tests. Like I was like, it's gonna be negative. It was negative. So I was like, I didn't pay attention to it. However, I did have a scheduled OBG appointment the following week after I missed my period. So it was 2 weeks late on my period. And I went ahead and it was a regular consult. It wasn't something like, oh my God. So I was scheduled here in Japan, and because it was a new doctor, so I had to break it down, like everything for him. So he was like, oh my God, like you've been through hell and back. And I was like, you're not kidding. So he went ahead and he told me, he's like, well, did you go ahead and actually take a pregnancy test? And I was like, yes, I've actually taken 2. I took a pregnancy test that morning too before I went to my appointment, and it was negative. And I did advise him, I was like, at this point, like all my tests are always negative. I'm used to it at this point. And that's when he had told me, you know what, I think we should go ahead and schedule you for the test that my OBG back home had told me to get scheduled. And I told him, hey, I actually already scheduled it. And he was like, perfect. He's like, let's just wait until you get your period for the month of May. So that way we could start from somewhere, and then we could pinpoint your next period, which would be my period of June, because you have to get the test done when you're on your period, which is really disgusting. So he wanted me to go ahead and just wait till I get my period. And I was like, okay, no problem. So then let's fast forward to Mother's Day. So Mother's Day, I literally woke up one morning and I had no symptoms. I kid you not, I had no symptoms, but I had a gut feeling. Something told me, yes, I need to take a pregnancy test. And I still had one test left over from all the many that I've taken in my freaking lifetime. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna take it. I have a gut feeling just to settle my peace of mind. So I went ahead and I took the test. Derek was still sleeping. It was super early in the morning. And there I am in the bathroom and dude, my hair. So there I am in the bathroom. I took the test and I literally put it on the floor and I was just waiting. I was like, it's gonna be negative, but just to settle my peace of mind. So I was on my phone and then I think I waited like 2 minutes before I actually glanced at the test. And once I saw the test, right away, I kid you not, it was bright, like super bright. And it was a positive. And I was in so much shock at this point. I was like, no freaking way. So I let it settle in for like literally a couple seconds. And then I went to the room where Derek was. And I had told him, dude, I just took a test. And he's like, okay, it was negative. And I was like, no, it was positive. And he's like, you're freaking kidding. And I was like, no. And before I had told him, I was actually in the bathroom debating if I wanted to tell him. But I was like, I can't be selfish either because he's been waiting just as much as I have to get pregnant. So I had to tell him right away. And I wouldn't be able to keep my mouth shut for that long. So I told him right away and he's like, okay, we're gonna go to the store and we're gonna buy a couple more tests because I did just take one test. So we went ahead and got 2 more tests and I took them in front of him and we just waited for the response because they were the digital ones. And right away they said, pregnant. He was like, we're pregnant. And I was like, oh my God. Immediately I started crying because it's from going through so much at this time and for them telling me I wasn't fertile and for them basically telling me that my chances were basically low at this point. And to just be pregnant literally out of nowhere, it was the best feeling in the world. And I had basically told him, I was like, we should wait before we tell our family. And then like we thought about it and then I took a shower and then I thought about it really well. And I was like, you know what? No, like we have to tell our parents because they have been waiting just as long as we have since Lena's passed and basically for us to have another kid. So they were everyone was super happy. All their reactions, I wanted to cry, but I was like, no, stand your ground. So, and that's how we got pregnant. Let me go into my labor and delivery. So to answer everyone's curious questions, I'm gonna be delivering here in Japan. I am gonna be staying here in Japan for my whole pregnancy. As much as I would love to be around family and my parents, Derek's parents, and all the love during a pregnancy like I did with Lena, I would love to experience that with my husband because my first pregnancy with Lena, it was long distance, like he was here and I was back home. So I'm actually super excited for us to experience this pregnancy together and hopefully my story made sense. It was a mess, but hopefully that part made sense. Also, we did go to our appointment.
Let me see.
Here we are.
Oh, yeah.
Excited.
That's good.
Good, nice heartbeat.
It was last week. They had confirmed our due date. Hopefully it doesn't change again because I feel like it's probably going to change again. They told us our new due date is going to be January 16th of 2020. Originally, it was going to be December 22nd of this year, but we got to see our baby, and that's the baby. It looks like a little nugget. I feel like they didn't even take good pictures. I'm so pissed, but you know, I gotta deal with what I have. So also I wanted to go over my symptoms so far. I had no symptoms in the beginning. Literally, I was so convinced. I was like, you know what? It's gonna be a boy. I'm 100% sure it's gonna be a boy. My gut told me it's gonna be a boy because immediately I was like, I have no symptoms. I have no morning sickness. I feel fantastic. And with Lena, it was a total opposite. But then literally a week later after finding we were pregnant, literally God was like, here you go. He hit me like Hurricane Katrina. I have severe morning sickness. I'm always nauseous. My cravings right now are sweets. I freaking love sweets right now. I cannot stand the smell of sour things. Like garlic, I can't stand the smell of it. Like just anything that's sour, I can't stand the smell of it. But that's basically it so far on my update. As of today, I am 7 weeks and 7 weeks and 5 days, I believe. Yeah, 7 weeks and 5 days. When we went to our first appointment, they told me I was 7 weeks, but I don't know. It's a hot mess, but I'm 7 weeks, 5 days now. So I do apologize if this video was a hot mess. I'm a hot mess as it is, just like my life. And hopefully you stay tuned for my next pregnancy update. Bye.